So, do you want to be sitting pretty during your retirement? Well, consider it a three legged stool, a metaphor for the three most common sources or legs of income that you'll likely rely on in retirement: Social Security retirement benefits, employer pension benefits, and individual savings and investments. So, taking steps now to strengthen each leg will go a long way towards making your retirement dreams a reality. Third leg, your individual savings and investments will likely play a major role in funding your retirement. With so many potential investment options to choose from: 401ks, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, stocks, bonds, it's important to follow an investment strategy, right, that balances the potential for growth with your tolerance for risk factors. And also be aware of the potential impact of current year and future taxes, and make sure that all these points align with your unique retirement goals. It usually takes some planning and a deeper look at your unique situation to ensure that you have a strong third leg of retirement income. But let's dive into some income strategies for this third leg. So, withdrawing money from a retirement plan is called taking distributions, and there are a variety of ways to do it. We're going to review several of these approaches. When it comes to taking distributions, you face a number of important decisions, including which money to use first. Should you pull money from your investment portfolio first or start taking distributions from your qualified retirement plans? How should you take distributions? It's not quite as simple as having money arrive every month within certain limits. You get to set the terms of your withdrawals yourself. And so, what investment strategies should you use? How will retiring affect how you invest the rest of your money? And what rules do you need to remember? It can be costly, of course, right, to disregard these rules and regulations that are out there. And then finally, you will need to make sure, that the decisions made about Social Security benefits are in your benefit, of course, and that the beneficiaries on your retirement plans are, of course, up to date at all times as well. So let's look at this. Generally, each of your retirement income may fit in one of these three categories, right? Taxable accounts, tax deferred accounts, and tax exempt accounts. And one of the first decisions again that you should make is, well, which money do you use first? So let's remember that withdrawals from your traditional IRAs, your 401ks, and other employer sponsored retirement plans are taxed as ordinary income. And remember also, if you are taking before the age of 59 and a half, you may be subject to a 10% federal income tax penalty, right? That's on top of paying the tax. Also, good to know is that generally, once you reach the age of 73, you have to start taking required minimum distributions out of these accounts. And this is now the age of 75 if you were born in or after 1960. So, now to qualify for a tax free and penalty free withdrawal of earnings from your Roth IRA distributions, you must meet the 5 year holding requirement rule, and the distribution must also occur after that same age of 59 and a half. So, tax free and penalty free withdrawals also can be taken under certain circumstances, such as the unfortunate situation of the owner's death. So, the original Roth IRA owner is not required, though, to take required minimum distributions from a Roth, right? That's only from those tax deferred vehicles that are traditional IRAs, 401ks. So, one approach to consider is withdrawing money from taxable accounts first, and then tax deferred, then tax exempt. So, by taking money from your taxable accounts first, you, well, avoid paying the bulk of your income taxes as long as possible on those tax deferred investments that you have. You can continue to see growth in those tax deferred investments on a tax deferred basis. Your tax exempt accounts will remain tax exempt also for a longer period of time that way. This approach, of course, is not going to be perfect for everybody, and your decision really should be influenced by your asset allocation, your personal unique tax considerations, and any withdrawal fees, right? Surrender charges. Remember those types of words, especially when you're going in and taking distributions from annuities or perhaps 403B. That could also be structured in an annuity still. How will you withdraw the money you have, well, so carefully accumulated? One option is, well, you leave it alone. That may work for a period of time, and your money may continue to accumulate tax deferred. And at some point, however, you may want to start taking distributions or, well, move the money into another tax deferred program. You also may be able to withdraw your retirement savings as a lump sum. Now, be aware, um, that employers are required to withhold 20% for federal taxes when issuing a lump sum. So check that with your employer, and it's possible that you may owe on top of that as well. So if that lump sum is a significant amount, well, that's going to be counted more than likely as taxable income, and so might put you in a, well, maybe even a higher tax bracket. So the lump sum may not always be the best option. If you take an early distribution, remember that withdrawals taken before 59 and a half may be subject to that additional 10% federal income tax penalty as well. You may be able to roll over your funds from a qualified retirement plan into a traditional IRA. And that'll allow your money to continue to accumulate on a tax deferred basis. And it can also enable you to unify several different qualified retirement accounts into a single place. A lot of people have 401ks that are orphaned out there, right, with different employers. And this might be a prime opportunity to go ahead and put them all in one single place. And if done properly, it won't trigger a taxable event. So, what does that mean? You won't owe any income taxes when you move the money. So, you would pay ordinary income taxes only on withdrawals, not on combining or rolling over those funds into one account. If you're eligible, you also may consider transferring assets into a Roth IRA, looking into, for instance, a Roth conversion, or if you already have a Roth 401k, that can go into a Roth IRA. And with a Roth conversion, you must pay current income taxes, right, on the funds that are converted. However, future earnings will accumulate tax free. So that could be in your advantage as well. So now, why would you choose an IRA rollover? Well, one of the most popular ways to take distributions from a qualified plan is to roll them into an IRA and then manage those investments there. So here's a little statistics that 60% of households with traditional IRAs funded these accounts by rolling over assets from employer sponsored retirement plans. So the most popular reason really was that they didn't really want to leave their assets with a former employer. So they had a desire to consolidate assets, and they really wanted to preserve that tax treatment of savings as well. Um, Let's take a look here at investment strategies. As an investment manager, and of course a financial advisor, we do quite a lot of this. We create pie charts, right? We invest assets in a diversified way. And this is a hypothetical example that you see here up on the screen. There's an aggressive portfolio, or more aggressive portfolio, with 70% stock and then 30% in bonds. And then on the other side, you see a conservative portfolio that is the reverse. It's 30% in stock and then 70% in bonds. And what we did is we looked over 96 years, and the period ended December 31, 2021. You'll notice that the aggressive portfolio was more volatile, right? In its best year, it returned 41.1%. And in its worst year, it was down 30.7%. And overall, it averaged a 10.5% annual rate of return for the period that we looked at. In its best year, the conservative portfolio returned 38.3%, and in its worst year, it lost 14.2%. So for that 96-year period, it averaged 8.1% annual rate of return. And well, this difference between a 10.5% return and an 8.1% return can really add up over time. Um, Remember, it's important for me to say that past performance really doesn't guarantee future results. We do often look at historical results to see where we are and what we might be expecting as we go through the cycles. But bonds, as you remember, have different maturities, right? They do have that interest rate risk. And of course, market conditions can really affect both bonds and stocks at the same time. The stocks here, by the way, were represented by the S&P 90 index from 1926 to March 1957, and then the S&P 500 right after that. So that was after 1957, just to be aware, because some folks will say, well, 1926, did we really have 500 major stocks at that time? So that's just to put my facts straight for you. All right. So now, what's a good investment strategy, or what could be a good investment strategy, is a split strategy. And it could be a split strategy using a well diversified portfolio, as you just saw on a pie chart. Either one of those, a conservative or perhaps a more aggressive portfolio, along with perhaps a guaranteed income stream. And that could come from perhaps an annuity that you have. And so this here shows you on screen that if you do a split strategy, which is quite common, that instead of leaving all the eggs in one basket, you kind of go with two different strategies, one that generates income for the immediate need in retirement, while the other strategy, the other investment, can be inherent of some risk. And it's okay because we're saving and growing those funds for a later day, when your income generating portfolio is kind of dwindling down a little bit. It's one way to maintain our overall principal, right? It's one way to perhaps maintain our overall net worth. Um, there could be a split combination, two ways. You could have a three way split combination. You could have an aggressive portfolio. You could have one that is more conservative but is not yet being used for income, and then you can have one that is your current income. So that's called your bucket strategy, and it's quite common for us to use a bucket strategy so that you do not outlive your money. That's really one of our main goals. Does not matter what individual retirement goals you might have. One thing that probably is something that all of us have in common is we don't want to outlive our money.